Welcome back to Wrestling Travel Presents the Lockdown Sessions. Today, we are with the mouth of the Midwest, JP. JP, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. How are you?
Doing good. Now, we are a United Kingdom company, wrestling, as I fumble over my words, wrestling travel. But you and I are both in the great state of Wisconsin today, so
we are. Now, before we start the interview, let me kick this off right, because interviews are always great. So, cheers to you.
Cheers. I got the no label bottle of.
See, I figured the no label thing, so I went and got a koozie. I thought of that.
You know, Ethan Matthews is a big fan of canned koozies.
Oh, I love canned koozies. I have 1,000 of them. Anytime there's a koozie available, for free. I don't pay for them. Anytime there's a koozie, I definitely snag it.
That's awesome. Do you have an Ethan Matthews koozie?
I probably do. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
if they were at a show that I was on with him, probably.
Awesome. Outstanding. So, JP, in the wrestling business now, when did you break in?
2001, February 3rd, to be precise, of 2001, for a now defunct company that you are aware of, Powerhouse Pro Wrestling, ran by Mike and Robin Thompson. I started in Kenosha, Wisconsin. That's actually where I'm from originally. Moved around here and there, but I started in Kenosha. In 2001 at a show at the Chat Room, which is now, I think, a nice fine dining steakhouse down by the lake. And the first match ever was Southside Willie versus Devin Diamond that I refereed.
Now, I was out on went to a show actually in Kenosha. And
I was probably there.
You were probably there. I can't remember the exact date, but Tony Leone, is he from Kenosha? Is that accurate?
I love Tony. Yes, he is. He's for, I don't know what he's doing now. I haven't seen him in a few years, but for a long time he was the garbage man in Kenosha. And I'm assuming the show you're speaking of was at Carthage College.
Okay.
And the promoter was Don McNeil, and the company was All World Wrestling, AWW.
I mean, they had the Bushwhackers there.
Yeah.
They had some WCW guys. I can't remember who was all there, but it was like one of those all-star shows.
Oh yeah,
fun show to watch.
Don McNeil was huge. Like I love Don. I love Don to death. Like I helped him out doing Kenosha's Got Idol a few years back, where he actually sent. It was a contest, and they did like American Idol stuff. But the winner of the Kenosha's Got Idol got an all-expenses-paid trip to Vegas to try out for Idol. Don McNeil has done so much for entertainment purposes in Kenosha. He also brought the Globetrotters one year to Bradford High School, because Globetrotters always do, it's New Year's Day, right? If I'm remembering off the top of my head, it's New Year's Day or New Year's Eve. They always do 2 shows in Milwaukee. And one year, they split the roster, and they did one show down at Bradford, my old high school, and then the other show in Milwaukee. P.S. The Globetrotters, I'll never work for them again. I worked that show, and they're nothing but assholes.
Oh, no.
I'll go on record.
Well, I got to go on record and let you know a story from my high school. We were down in Madison when I was probably a junior or a senior, and they had a program called Athletes for a Better Way. And we would go to the local elementary schools, those of us that were football players, whatever, and talk to kids about just, playing sports and staying on the straight and narrow. We got sent to a conference down in Madison. And this big, huge conference, like 2 or 3 representatives from every school in the state. And I never made it to the conference because at our hotel, the Globetrotters were staying there. And one of them asked me, "Hey, kid, can you help us with the luggage?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then I ended up with all these. They gave me these like 8x10s and autographed pictures. So I was lugging freaking suitcases around for the Globetrotters. And then when I got back home to my high school, I got called out in front of the entire assembly. And so man, if they treated you like jerks,
It wasn't just me, though. Like, it was the entire people that were putting everything together. They were nothing. They were just assholes to everybody.
That's disappointing because
Yeah, very much so.
he does not love the Globetrotters. You know, you turn them on, they're fantastic. But let's get
Great
away from
show, just shitty people. I don't know if I'd say crappy people.
You can swear we're in the United Kingdom. There's a lot of words that they say that they would shock a lot of people over here. So Tony Leone, I'm a huge AWA mark.
Oh, I've heard.
Yeah. So I mean, Tony Leone is a guy. I'm gonna get. I got Van Horn. I got to get on here. I want to get Greg Gagne on here so bad, but I have no.
I love Tony to death. There was a company called Future Shock Wrestling.
Okay.
At first they were called Flatland Superstars of Wrestling, and Al Patterson got on them for using the Superstars of Wrestling, and so they changed the name to Future Shock Wrestling. They ran in Winthrop Harbor, Illinois, in the early 2000s, and Tony was intricate in that. He did a lot of training sessions with a lot of guys before the shows and everything like that. And he would ref the shows or ring announce the shows. He just always wanted to be a part of it. Like, I love Tony to death. Tony's a great guy.
Dude, I caught Tony in the parking lot after that show in Kenosha, and dude talked to me. Now, if you're not familiar where Kenosha is, we're damn close to freaking right on the lake there. So it's probably springtime. Anyway, the wind's whipping off the lake, and the guy's talking to some idiot like me about the AWA.
Yeah.
For 15, 20 minutes. And again, had I had a cell phone or even thought I would be doing things like this in the future,
right?
Wish I would have had it on tape. So I'll have to see.
Oh, yeah.
Somehow find out how to get a hold of Tony Leone, Greg Gagne.
I think Tony's. I can't remember offhand, but I think he's still on Facebook. I know at one point he was. Otherwise, I know a couple of people who probably still keep in contact. I can probably hook you up in a roundabout way with a contact for Tony Leone.
Right. And the hard thing too about some of those guys is they're like, I don't have any technology. I don't know how to use it. I barely know how to use the technology that we're using. So
they're still using the flip phones.
Yeah. Flip it up. So February 3rd, 2001, but who broke you in? Where did you do your training?
I basically, that was my first show. Previous to this, I basically just went to a show. My dad and I used to go to all the shows around the area. I mean, from Kenosha down to Chicago and up to Milwaukee. Indie shows, WWF shows, AWA shows, WCW shows. When I was a kid, I went to everything. And this is all I ever wanted to do in my life. So my dad and I went to the show in Kenosha for Powerhouse. And at the end of the show, I walked up to Mike and said basically that I'm 15 years old. I want to do this. This is all I've ever wanted to do. My dad's here. He'll sign a waiver or whatever. How do I start training? And he's like, well, I can't have you wrestle because you're only 15, but I'm in need of a rev. I'm like, done deal. Like, I'll do anything I can to get my foot in the door into the business. So, I mean, at 15 years old, I started as a referee for Mike and Robin.
Right, and that makes sense. Then you're around the business. You're probably picking things up.
Oh yeah, like I've never once credited any one person to any of my training because I mean, you were around Powerhouse. There was no real like actual trainer. I would get to the shows as early as possible. I would be setting up the ring with whoever else was there, and then as people came, I would ask people to get into the ring with me and just roll around or teach me something. Guys like El Vato, Nick Fury, Dinty Moore, Matt Winchester, he was a big one when he first started coming around to Powerhouse. Jay Reel was another great one. I loved Jay Reel, Jimmy Goomba. He was another one that I would always ask anybody that was there. I would always ask to get into the ring with them and just teach me anything because I want to know. And I was so young, and it worked because, I mean, I got a little bit of here and there from a lot of people. And then when I started turning 17 and 18 is when I really started amping up the training sessions with anybody that I could. And then I transitioned from being a ref into a manager into being a wrestler. And throughout the way, getting to learn everything there is to do in the business.
Now I'm going to take a wild guess here. You've probably been in the ring and learned a few things from Angel Armani.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So funny story is back in the late 90s or whatever, I was wrestling with Rebels of Wrestling, and Angel Armani came in, and everybody was like, "Oh, should we get in the ring with them?" I'm like, "I'll jump in the ring with them and
Absolutely.
learn something because I don't know anything." So fast forward to last October, so October of 2019, I'm on a show with our mutual friend Tiny Love, and
Yeah.
Angel is there, and I brought over two younger kids. I met in Montreal. Uh, one of them trained with Seth Rollins. The other one trained with Harley Race, but they're green, super
Yep.
nice kids, Robbie and Sean. And I go, "Hey, I want to introduce you," because Angel's there, and I'm telling him stories, and he doesn't remember from 20 years ago talking to me. But I love his sense of humor and stuff. Angel invites those guys the next day on the Sunday to go train with them. Well, they're heading back to Chicago and Iowa. They can't. Angel takes those guys for 20, 30 minutes behind the food court at the little food truck that was at the show, and works with them. I'm like,
Oh yeah,
just a
absolutely.
guy giving back. Always.
And he's done that. He's done that for years. Like he's molded and sculpted a lot of the, especially Milwaukee. Obviously, a lot of the talent all over Milwaukee has had Armani in the ring at some point or another. Either it being in a show, on a match, or just rolling around before shows. Armani's an awesome dude.
Yeah, man, great sense of humor. Great guy to talk to. So if you run into him as a fan anywhere on the show, go up and say hi to Angel, and you'll have a smile on your face, I guarantee. So
Oh yeah.
you're in the ring as a referee. When do you have your first match as a wrestler?
Offhand, I can't remember. I know it was a March. I don't remember if I was 18 or 19. I have about 1,500 hours of VHS tapes from when I broke in and throughout the years that I still need to convert. It's probably down there somewhere. I do remember my first match being a referee versus referee match, which was so awful. But that was my first time actually wrestling in a match. Now when I was a ref and transitioning into being a manager, I was always the bump guy. So if anybody needed a ref bump, I was the one that got bumped. And then when I transitioned to being a manager, I always got bumped. And so transitioning to being a wrestler was just another step in the process. And so it was probably real awful, considering out of the two refs that wrestled, I was the only one that had like wrestling training. The other one was just a ref. And we all remember Earl Hebner and Nick Patrick.
Man, yeah, and it just we were talking before we started recording. A lot of my stuff is non-existent, and I was telling you I'd love to see it, but then again, as we started talking, I'm like, maybe it's best if some of that stuff did get thrown away in a house fire.
I've got so much VHS stuff that I someday, before it's all gone, I have to convert, because I'll be so sad if I lose it all. It's stuff from 2001, 2002, 2003, all the way up to like 2006. And then it finally gets to DVD standpoints.
I do have one match on tape, one of my final matches back in the day, and it's on, I don't even know what you call them. It's on a cassette that's like that big. You used to have to stick it into like this regular VHS size case to play it on a
So
VCR.
it'd be an SVHS.
There we
go. It was recorded. It was off of a camcorder it looks like a VHS tape, but just mini, right?
Just tiny, yeah.
Yeah, and then I have one of those gimmicks. Like you put that tape into a converter tape, and then you put the converter tape into the VHS player, the VCR. I still have one of those.
All of the kids that were watching this video just shut it off right now because they're like, what the hell are these guys talking about? SVHS. We haven't even heard of the regular VHS. Oh man. So who are when do you get the moniker Mouth of Midwest? Is that pretty early or?
No, that was actually really, I want to say maybe 5-6 years ago.
Okay.
And it actually came from a fan, which I think is really cool. Like the logo that I have everywhere, is created by a fan. The moniker was created by a fan. Somebody actually just said it to me. It's like, you should run with that. Like, you're like Jimmy Hart, but up here. I'm like, that's awesome. I'm going to run with it. And then a fan created me a logo. And the best part ever is there was a state fair show with Jimmy Hart that I worked for Brew City Wrestling a few years back. And I've got pictures of me and Jimmy Hart, me in my shirt, and him being the mouth of the South. And I asked him, I told him the story. And he's like, I love it, baby.
Such a good dude, isn't he?
Yeah, oh, he's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I don't know anybody that has a bad Jimmy Hart story.
No, I don't either. And he's, I've never heard of him being in a bad mood, you know?
Yeah, ever.
I always have I shouldn't even say the guy's name because it's kind of rude, but I'll say it. I always, anytime I'm on somewhere where Greg the Hammer Valentine is, I always have him. Like listen, I'll give you $5 if you can make the Hammer smile. And I still have that $5 in my pocket.
I would have so many of your $5 bills. I love Greg the Hammer Valentine. We chop it up all the time in the locker room. He's such a good dude.
Oh, he's great. But I'm like, he always sits there and he just looks.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, can you make the Hammer smile? And everybody's like, I'm not. Nobody's taking the bet.
I would take the bet now and take your $5. The best one was for MEPW. Will Powell used to run MEPW in Belgium, Wisconsin, and they brought Greg in. And it was me, my former tag partner, and Greg Valentine against 3 other dudes in a 6-man. And we walk up to Greg and we're like, so Greg, what do you want to do tonight? Oh, I'm going to jump off the top rope, man. I'm like, all right, yeah, let's do it. He's such a good dude.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, luckily I've been able to talk to like a lot of people. He's the one guy that I'm like, dude, he just looks miserable at some of these shows.
Yeah, absolutely. I will agree with you. But in the locker room, he has so much fun.
So you've been in the ring with tagging with Greg Valentine. You've been around for a long time. Who are some of whether it was refereeing or managing or being in the ring, what are some of the quote unquote names that you've been in the ring with in your illustrious career?
A lot. The very first name I ever got to work with was for Powerhouse in Hustisford for some fireman's picnic in Hustisford. And the very first one was Demolition Axe. And what's really cool about that is you fast forward 15 years and I'm at the CAC and I get to sit at Demolition's table as they're accepting an award from the CAC, which is really cool because like Demolition was the first guy that I got to work with as a member of the business. And then you fast forward so many years and I'm sitting at the same table with him and he's accepting an award at the Cauliflower Alley Club. So that's really cool. I mean, I've gotten my head shaved by Brutus the Barber Beefcake 4 times. I've taken the claw from Baron von Raschke 5 or 6 times. The very first state fair show that Brew City Wrestling did, I got what I call my Heath Slater moment. And this is going to pop you huge. We had a bunch of names on this show. I mean, Greg Valentine was on the show. Greg Gagne was on the show. Jumpin' Jim Brunzell was on the show.
Come on.
Marty Jannetty. I know I'm missing something. I want to say there was 5 or 6 names on the show. There was Jannetty. There was the High Flyers. There was Greg Valentine. I know. Baron von Raschke and Mad Dog Vachon were all there as well.
Oh,
and
shit.
So I got my Heath Slater moment. At the end of the finish of the match, I'm managing. And the finish happens, and I'm now backing away from all the babies and all the names that came into the ring. And I bump into a wheelchair. Well, I turn around, and it's Mad Dog Vachon, and he scares me. And I turn around into the claw from Baron von Raschke, which then he throws me into the ring. I get super kicked by Marty Jannetty. I get the sleeper hold put on me by Greg Gagne. And that's the one that pops you. Frank DeFalco gives me the thumper struck. I go down, And Greg Valentine wraps me in the figure 4 leg lock. So I got my Heath Slater moment at the first State Fair show for Brew City because I took all the Legends finish. And that parlays into another story, and I'm chock full of stories, but this is probably my absolute favorite road trip story ever. And it's the next day after that show. Now, me and my group, my carload of people, we've got 3 different shows between Wisconsin and the UP all in one day. And Janetti is on the one in the UP. So we have 2 carloads of people. We start in West Bend at noon. So now this is Friday because the first year of State Fair we did opening day, which was Thursday. So this would have been a Friday if memory serves me correctly. And so we start at West Bend at noon. Now most of our carload isn't on this show. There was like 1 or 2 guys for SWE, which is now defunct. They did a show in West Bend. And so we're all just hanging out, and I'm like, hey, you can see the ring from the beer tent. And I'm like, Marty, come on, I got you your first one. He's like, no, brother, I got you. So I'm like, all right, let's go. And so Marty and I start at noon drinking. And now we got to go from West Bend to Escanaba. Now, neither one of us, Marty or I, are driving. Just want to make that clear.
Yep.
But we started at noon in West Bend. We drank all the way throughout the entire show. We drank in the car all the way to Escanaba from West Bend.
For our people that are not familiar with our geography, how long of a car ride is that to Escanaba from West Bend?
4
Roughly.
hours?
4 hours?
Roughly 4 hours. That show was at noon. I think Pete's show was at 6. So, I mean, we had that time frame to go. We drank the entire way up there. We get out of the car, and we see this motorcycle fly by us, and a turbine is flying past. Get out of the car, and it's like, is that Sabu? And like 2 minutes later, this motorcycle skids right next to us, throws rocks everywhere all over us, and sure as shit, it's Sabu. He got his turbine caught in the chain of the motorcycle. And so now Marty and I are laughing our ass off. We're already half in the bag, 3/4 in the bag anyways. And so now we're getting this turbine out of the chain of this motorcycle, and he didn't bring another one. So now Sabu's going to the ring with a greasy as hell turbine. Marty and I are on this show. All of our carloads, our 2 carloads, were in the first half of this show because then we have to go from Escanaba to De Pere, which is about another 2.5 hour drive. And so we're all on the first half of the show. Marty gets done with his stuff. We all get done with our stuff. We pack the car up again. We go to De Pere. The De Pere bell time is 10 p.m. This was somebody's great idea to do. It's called Fight Night, which basically it was all worked shoots. It was a really dumb idea. But anyways, Marty's not on this show. Marty and I are now tanked. We started at noon. It's now like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And we get to that show. Marty's not on it. I was supposed to ref or ring announce or manage something. I was supposed to do something, but I wasn't supposed to wrestle. And I get there, and the promoter's like, hey, this other manager's really been itching to work you in a hardcore match. Would you do it? And I looked at the promoter, and I said, I've been drinking with Marty Jannetty since noon. I'm in no shape. But okay, I will.
But the answer is yes.
Yeah, I mean, I knew, granted, you probably shouldn't work tanked. But at the same time, I've worked for most of my career at least half lit and never hurt anybody ever. Only fucked up a couple of things. Never fucked myself up. So that's my defense. Anyways, so this guy's name is Weasel. He's a completely untrained fuck. And I just roll my eyes. I'm like, all right, let's do this. So here's what we're gonna do. I lay out the match, and I'm, mind you, I'm gone. And I lay out the simplest hardcore match in the entire world. I'm the heel, he's the baby. I Pearl Harbor, I beat you up with weapons. I go for something, pin, 1, 2, kick out. I'll go to the top rope, you give me the flare bump. I get up, hit me with a bunch of weapons. I'll cut you off, finish, 1, 2, 3. Done. Easy as pie. So it's time for the match. He goes out, I go out. Marty Jannetty's sitting in the second row, mind you. Nobody realizes in the crowd that Marty Jannetty is sitting in the second row. It's kind of upsetting. But I go and I grab my cowboy hat off. I put it on Marty's head. I'm like, this. I walk right up to him. I'm like, this is gonna be a clusterfuck. So get in the ring, do my stuff. I'm beating the crap out of this guy, bunch of weapons and stuff. And now it's time for me to do something, pin him, and go for the flare bump. I'm like, all right. So I'm gonna give him the drop kick. I'm gonna whip him to the ropes. And I'm gonna give him the drop kick. This goes back to yesterday when I got the sleeper hold from Greg Gagne.
All right.
I always say that Gagne gave me the power of the drop kick through that sleeper hold, because when I drop kicked Weasel on Friday night, I pinned him 1, 2, 3, and I look down and he's out freaking cold. And I just looked down. I looked back up at the promoter and I just shrugged my shoulders. Well, apparently what had happened was there was a steel chair in the ring because, again, it was a hardcore match. When I gave him that drop kick, he never tucked his chin, nothing, because, again, he's an untrained fuck. So when he took that drop kick, he bashed the back of his head on the steel chair and knocked himself out. And then Marty and I closed the bar in De Pere. So Marty and I became friends that day because we started at noon and we closed the bar in De Pere.
That's awesome. Oh, we got on a separate show I do called Road Stories, and I'm sure I could get a ton from you, but that's
oh, absolutely.
That is fantastic. Yeah, I'm gonna call out Frankie the Thumper DeFalco right now because I did lockdown sessions with him, and I'm trying to be professional. I got called a journalist like a month ago, JP, so I got that going for me. But he talks about talking to Greg Gagne every couple of weeks, and so when we stop recording, I'm like, "Hey, dude, I don't usually like to ask this, but do you think you can put in a good word for Greg Gagne?" And because he's telling me he talks to him twice a week, and I still haven't heard anything back from Frankie DeFalco. I want to try to put him on the spot. Now he's going to call Greg and go, "Hey, this guy's a jerk. Don't talk to him."
You know, Tiny told me that story, and Tiny told me that you were a big Greg Gagne fan, and that's why I wanted to tell the story of you getting the power of the dropkick from Gagne through his sleeper hold at that State Fair show.
That's awesome. Because Tiny was telling me the story of watching the Frankie DeFalco interview, and he says, "I'm back like this." I haven't rewatched it since he's told me this. And then I guess Frankie mentions Greg Gagne, and I'm like,
yeah,
go
you
on.
Just light up.
But a lot of people, you know, don't give him his. People always ask, "Who's your favorite wrestler?" And I go, "Well," and I'll defend it till the day I die. But I'm always like, "Well, you're not gonna know who he is," and then you're gonna go, "Why isn't it Triple H?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, I grew up. We had 3 channels, man, and one of my first memories watching wrestling. In fact, I wish I still had it. It was a VHS tape that we bought at like Woolworth or something, and it was Sergeant Slaughter. And I wasn't drawn to Slaughter as much as he was training this kid, Greg Gagne. Now this is post. I have to watch wrestling and then go back in history to go, oh, he used to team with Brunzell, but the Camp Slaughter. Have you seen that vignette?
I know exactly the video you're talking about.
And he makes Greg hold this rock for like ever, and then finally he goes, "Oh, put the rock down, Greg." I freaking love it. Oh, I wish.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Man, dude, that's when I started, and it was like Greg Gagne, man, everything. I used to start my matches in the ring. I'd be in the corner holding the ropes, and then ring the bell and come out like, it's just like, don't even realize I'm doing it, but it's from years of watching Greg.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, so Greg Gagne, and another one, I don't know if you will remember, maybe this is later on in the day, and I've asked Mick Karch on Slick Mick's Old School Wrestling, former ring announcer at the AWA. Yep. I've asked several times, and nobody really knows what's happened to him, but do you remember a gentleman by the name of Ricky Rice that wrestled in the AWA?
No, I do not.
If you want to get a good shot of him, Super Clash 3, he teams with Derek Dukes and Wendy Richter, and they go against Bad Company and Medusa Michelli. Anyway, Ricky's from Minnesota, but Ricky Rice threw one of the most ridiculous drop kicks I've ever seen, like one of those standing right to your face drop kicks. And I
I'll have to
always
go back
wondered,
and watch that. Absolutely.
yeah. And I'm not sure if he probably gets a good drop kick in during that match, but just one of those guys. He wrestled one or two enhancement matches for WWF at the time, kind of after. Then he wrestled as like the Prophet Ricky Rice in PWA.
Okay.
But yeah, nobody seems to know what happened to him. It might have been one of those guys that just, hey, got out of the business and I stay away. But he's another guy I'd love to, if not talk to, I'd at least like to find out, hey, what happened to the guy?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a lot of good talent in the AWA. A lot of people will say the AWA, like back in that early 80s when they lost Gene Okerlund, Bobby Heenan,
Everybody.
Hulk Hogan.
Oh, yeah.
That was a lot of talent. But then you go back later in the 80s before they closed down, they still had a shitload of talent.
Yeah, because those guys were all fresh and new. And I mean, you gotta start somewhere. And the breeding ground of the AWA is so amazing. Like, if you just look at how many stars of pro wrestling came out of the AWA.
One of my favorite things is I went to see Great Lakes Championship Wrestling. They came up near me 2 times. The first time I was there, it was because Baron Von Raschke was there.
Yep.
And Tiny will make fun of me for being a mark, but Baron Von Raschke, last fall, 79 years old. I'm getting an autograph and I'm getting a picture with the guy. I don't care. He's the man.
Well, absolutely. That's why I popped, because, like, okay, I'm 34 years old. I know I look like I'm in my mid-40s, but I'm 34 years old. And I can say that I've gotten the claw put on me at shows by Baron at least 5 times in my life. Like, that's so neat when you think about, like, I have home videos of me when I was a 4-year-old kid, and my grandma's asking me what I want to do when I grow up, and I tell her I want to be a pro wrestler. And now you fast forward 30 years, and I can tell the story that I've gotten the claw put on me by Baron Von Raschke on multiple occasions. Or the same thing with getting my head shaved by Brutus the Barber Beefcake on multiple occasions. 4-year-old me blows my mind.
Yeah, I hear you. One of the other Great Lakes show I went to that came up here featured Road Warrior Animal.
Okay.
Super nice guy.
I got an awesome story about. I'll let you tell yours, and I got.
Oh, awesome! No, I asked him, hey, can I get like 5 minutes to do a little splurge for wrestling travel? I wanted to say happy holidays and stuff, but the AWA market me can't resist. I'm asking him like, who should be in the Hall of Fame? What tag teams? And I close with, could you please tell me a Jerry Blackwell story? And because I love Jerry Blackwell, I'll tell you what. As long as you're drinking and I'm having a soda here, I'll tell you a story. In college, drunk at a party, I have my hands around some guy's throat against the wall because he called. Now, why do I care in the mid-90s? But I'm drunk at a party. He called Jerry Blackwell a fat piece of shit, and I had that fucker against the wall, ready to get into this huge knockdown drag-out. And I made him take it back. But I was like, talk about protecting the business. I was protecting Jerry Blackwell. But please tell me your animal story.
So a couple of years ago, a buddy of mine who I've known since I was like 12 years old tried to do a couple of shows. You may not have heard about it. It didn't go very well. Let's just say that. There was Road Warrior Animal. It was supposed to be a 2-day event, one show down in Illinois, the other in Madison. Road Warrior Animal, Sandman was on the show, Hornswoggle was on the show, Adam Rose was on the show, bunch of guys. And so we're down in Illinois, and I do the Illinois show, and Road Warrior Animal is supposed to be the commissioner of the night or some BS, the general manager of the night or whatever, and I'm supposed to go into the ring and cut him off to set up, I was managing, to set up my guy taking on Adam Rose in the main. Or no, I'm sorry. I take that back. I wrestled Sabu that show, and I managed later on in the night. But I wrestled Sabu, so I was supposed to interrupt Animal, and he was going to put me in an impromptu match against Sabu. And so I know I have to interrupt Animal in a promo, so I walk up to him, and if anybody who knows me watches this, everybody knows my love for the 80s professional wrestler garb. I own multiple pairs of Zubaz. I wear a fanny pack every day of my life. Actually, fun fact, today I'm going to buy a Halliburton. So I want to be the quintessential 80s guy when it comes to pro wrestling. So I'm getting a Halliburton. I always wear my cowboy boots. I got a bunch of Zubaz. So anyways, I love Zubaz, and the Road Warriors are infamous for the Zubaz. So I asked him, I was like, sir, so in my promo, I was just curious, would I be able to shit on how old you are and on Zubaz? And he looked at me and he's like, why? And my butt puckered. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, he's such an intimidating dude, but he's one of the nicest guys I've ever met, but he's so intimidating. And I just told him the story. It's like, I want to pop the boys because I wear Zubaz all the time and I wear a fanny pack and I want to shit on him just to pop me and the boys. He's like, yeah, go ahead. I'm like, all right, cool. So I got to be in the ring with Road Warrior Animal, and I got to shit on how old he was and on Zubaz. It was so awesome.
Yeah, he was. He did a seminar, and I'm coming off a knee injury, so I asked Dave here. I'm like, dude, can I just? I'll give you the call. I'll give you the money, but I just want to hang out.
Yeah,
you know how the business is. You're constantly learning. And then I ask him after. By the way, I always don't know him from anybody, but Calihero, very impressive.
Yeah.
Really, for what, 2 years in the business? I mean,
yeah, he's been around it his whole life. So I mean,
been around it. He's just in the ring working with some other guy.
Oh yeah.
I'm on the outside, Animal's on the outside, and Cal's just on everything. So, but afterwards I go, hey man, you mind if I just take my phone? Can I get a few? And he's like, yeah, sure. Like that whole, like, I don't really want to do this, but
yeah.
I'll do it. But then he's just on. He's a pro. He's on for the 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
Super nice guy. Shook his hand and stuff. So, man, I just feel like it's story time. I feel like I got to talk.
I'm chock full of them.
That's awesome. This is probably, and one of the things I do get feedback on these is they love the stories, and they love the fact that I'm not going, JP, in 1982 you were in the ring with this, what happened? Talk about being an 80s guy and getting in. I got to talk to somebody asked me I was on a podcast last night, what was your favorite interview? And I'm like, man, I don't want to say a favorite interview because I really enjoy them all. These are supposed to go 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Here I am talking bullshit with everybody because I love it. But I was like, man, I had to say Nikita Koloff because I had no idea. I told you I had 3 channels. I never got to watch NWA when it was happening.
Okay.
I had to read it in the magazines.
Yeah.
And now, if you remember reading stuff in the magazines, guys were 8 feet tall because you just saw pictures and oh God, this guy's crazy.
100%.
I remember when the $1 Million Man came into the WWF, and I'm like, oh, that's that guy Ted DiBiase, because I didn't know how to pronounce that shit when I was a kid, But Nikita, and I said to Nikita, man, if you watch the interview, I say, listen, I'd love to ask you about the Best of 7 with Magnum TA. But everybody's asked you that, and probably look it up. But I go, hey, what was it like getting the pop when they turned you, when you joined Dusty Rhodes and Superpowers? And he complimented me on my questions afterwards. But I got to tell you, if you did not watch that interview, the night before I'm watching it, I'm doing my journalistic research, right? Which includes Wikipedia and YouTube. So, but I get down this YouTube trap, as we all do. But I'm watching 1985, the AWA and NWA, Comiskey Park, Super Clash. And I'm looking at this match and all these legends in the ring, including Nikita now.
Yeah.
It's Nikita, Barry Darsow, Crusher Khrushchev, Ivan Koloff. They're in the ring against Baron, Crusher, Dick the Bruiser. So he goes, very funny you asked me about that. He's telling me he's in the corner, Dick the Bruiser's giving him these, he goes, rock'em sock'em robot punches. And he goes, Dick's going rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat. He's making the noise. He goes, I'm like, oh. So even though my things are long, there's some good stories in them. So
did you ask him about the Tommy Young incident?
Tucking his junk back in. No, I did not. I did not. I didn't think of that. Maybe we'll do a part 2. Road stories. Tell me about the time. Oh, God, I forgot all about that. I just get so, like, I interviewed PCO, and I'm like, shit. If PCO does this in character, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to be able to understand him. He couldn't have been nicer. So
nice. Very nice.
So you've been in the ring with a lot of people. Is there people right now that you have not been in the ring with, but would be on like your bucket list of people you'd like to work with? Maybe
I
even
mean,
young.
Most of my bucket list guys, they're all past. Like, I just told the story recently on my Facebook about Nick Bockwinkel and the time as an adult. I met him out in Vegas for the Cauliflower Alley Club, and I was able to tell him that as an infant, I pissed on him.
Yeah, okay. I think I saw this on Facebook recently, right?
Yeah, it was not too long ago that the anniversary of me meeting him before he passed. It was the year before he passed. He was still the president of the CAC. And me and Matt Winchester and his wife were at the CAC. And that whole weekend, I was like, I gotta talk to Nick. Like, I want to tell him as an adult, because I met him when I was a kid. As an adult, I want to meet him and tell him and just ask if he remembers ever being peed on by a baby at the Mecca Arena in Milwaukee. And so, I mean, guys like Nick Bockwinkel, Kurt Hennig, Big Boss Man, Earthquake, most of my bucket list will never happen because those guys are all past.
Now, one of the other questions I do a little thing, and I haven't done it for a while, called Inside the Archives. And how it started was I moved back to Wisconsin here. I moved into this lovely little cabin on the lake. And now I've got all these boxes of shit to go through because the COVID is preventing us from doing. And I pull out a letter I got to go to training camp to the power plant in WCW. So okay. It's this pristine letter that while I'm wrestling in Wisconsin, in my head, I can't pay $300 for a plane ticket. And besides, I'm making $25 a weekend doing this. So why would I'll go sometime later. So I got this pristine letter and I go, hey, this is kind of cool if you're a wrestling fan. If you've never got to see this, just Xerox. I mean, I'm telling this.
Absolutely.
But I'm like, yeah, kind of cool. So I've got a few collectibles at one point, and I don't know what happened to it. I had Wahoo McDaniel's singlet that he left behind
that's
the
cool.
locker room in Rhinelander,
cool.
Wisconsin. No idea what happened to it. I wish I still had it. I got a Randy Macho Man Savage autograph. Do you have anything in your personal collection? I always hesitate to ask guys because a lot of guys will go, no, dude, I'm way too cool. I don't collect anything. But do you got any collectibles?
I'm an absolute nerd. My father actually passed away 2 Octobers ago, and my dad was the collector when it comes to memorabilia. My dad battled a bunch of diseases for a while in his life, so he basically didn't work for the last decade of his life, but he bought and sold on eBay constantly. So my dad was an avid collector. And I'm going to get up real quick just to go grab something because it's hanging right on the wall. And this is the coolest thing you'll ever see in your entire life. I promise you. All right. So for basically the entire time my father, quick backstory, my mom and dad met at a wrestling show. My mom, my 2 aunts, and my grandma back in the early 80s used to pick up the wrestlers from the airport, bring them to the hotel, bring them to the arena, back to the hotel, and back to the airport. My dad used to take pictures, and they'd go into the magazines in the early 80s.
Oh.
And so I was born basically in the business. Like, that's why I'm such a nerd for it. But for as long as I can remember, my father always carried around this book right here. It's the wrestling, the pictorial history of wrestling, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the cover is Snuka, Hogan, and Flair. On the back, it's Dusty and Billy Graham. And inside, like I want to say this book came out in like 84-ish, 85 maybe. And this is basically my father's life work. Anybody you can imagine that was around in the 80s is probably autographed in this book. My dad took this thing everywhere with him. As you can see, the cover is complete. Snuka over there, Flair, Hogan as well. The back cover is not complete, but I mean, there's a list that my dad kept in here. So again, when it comes to memorabilia, this is like the holy grail in my opinion. There are guys on here. I'll just read a couple because it's a list. But guys like Johnny Valiant, Bam Bam Bigelow, King Kong Bundy, Jannetty, Shawn Michaels, John Nord, Leaping Lenny Poffo, Jim Brunzell, Kamala, Teddy Long, the Hebners, Sergeant Slaughter. The list goes on and on. One of the cooler ones in here as well, and to my knowledge, like I've never met somebody besides my dad that has an Adrian Adonis autograph.
I was gonna ask Adrian. That was on my. I was gonna ask you when you finished if you got an Adrian.
He is in the book. He's got a little biography, and my dad told me the story a long time ago that he was at a bar. The book was just chilling on the bar table, and Adrian was drinking at the bar, and started thumbing through the book and saw a collection of autographs. And so it tells my dad, he's like, I see what you're doing here. It's really cool. And he signed his little biography in the book.
Wow. Man.
So yeah, that to me, this to me is like the holy grail. When he always told me he was going to sell it before he died, or it was going to go in the casket with him. But no, yeah, when he passed away, he told that was for me. And since I've had it, I've only gotten one autograph in it, and that's the Brooklyn Brawler.
That's fantastic. That's is there a lot left to get in that book that are still kicking around?
No. Guys that are not autographed in this, or guys that are biographied in here that are not autographed, I want to say they're all passed. Luthez, that's not autographed. Buddy Rogers is not autographed. If you ever come down to a show, let me know. I'll bring it, and you can thumb through this. Like this, it's amazing. It really is.
That's cool. Yeah, I was gonna go down. Speaking of shows, I was gonna try to top you with, but I don't want to say with my Greg Gunny, but I can't top that. Yeah. Speaking of shows, now there's a show tonight in Wisconsin, and now this is gonna be awkward for a lot of people because we are one of the few states that are running shows, as far as I know. I got a call from Steve, who runs Warrior Wrestling in Chicago, and they are kicking around Illinois is like having 20% capacity, so I don't know if they've run shows. Our folks in the United Kingdom are going to think this is crazy because they're not even – I don't even know if they have McDonald's open yet over there. But
really?
Yeah, I think McDonald's kind of did open because they were all going crazy for it for a while.
See, I mean, and that's an entirely different show, but I'm a conspiracy nut. So this whole thing just blows my mind. Like, I've been in the business for 19 years. This has been the longest break I've had in the business since I started. The most before COVID I ever took off was like 3 weeks. So this 3-month crap has been killing me.
So now, is tonight your first show back?
Yes, officially. Like, I went to an ICW show 2 weeks ago just to go because I needed to be around everything.
There's a show in De Pere tomorrow night that Tiny asked me to go to. It's only like 2 hours away. I was thinking about heading up to that. Are you on that show?
I am. That's WPW. That's a company that I helped book for. I've been with that company solidly for over a year now. And if you want to come down tomorrow, I'll bring the book, absolutely, so you can thumb through it. But yeah, come on down tomorrow. It's in De Pere. It's at Baba Louie's. I know this isn't going to air tonight or anything like that.
No,
But
no, but
it's in De Pere Baba Louie. You can find the WPW on Facebook at Wisconsin Pro Wrestling.
we're gonna plug all that stuff for sure.
Oh,
'Cause
absolutely. Cool.
That's what this lockdown session started as. I'm like, what can I do to we had a lot of people help us out with the Mania pub crawl. We were
cool.
Wrestling Travel sponsors of that. All the money was going to go to Connor's Cure. Then they decided to do the Wednesday before Mania. I've told this story so many times. The guy calls me and says he wants to do a virtual pub crawl on Twitch. I don't know what any of those words mean, but I will help you out and get some talent.
Well, here's our virtual drinking.
There we go. So, and I said, well, what can I do? This YouTube channel is just sitting here. And I want to be able to help people sell merch, sell T-shirts, and something that you will appreciate that has gone by the wayside, I believe. Sell your brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if I can't help you sell a T-shirt right now, JP, what I hope I can do is once everything gets back to normal, somebody's going to go, dude, I watched that. I heard stories from JP. I'm going to go to his show, or whoever I'm at, Tiny Love. I want to go meet him. But, man, I bet you people watching this can go up and go, dude, I'm going to take up all the intermission time listening to some JP stories. So.
Oh, and I got a bunch. I absolutely got a bunch. And I'm more than willing, as long as somebody wants to come to a show, buy me a beer, I'll tell you any story you want to hear, because I got a lot of them.
That's awesome. Yeah, that book just blows my mind. That's so cool. And you know what? That's
literally the coolest thing in the world, in my opinion.
You probably put that on eBay and you get a lot of money for it, but to you, that's priceless. From your father and your mother meeting at a wrestling match.
Yeah.
I mean, when are we filming the JP story? Because this is a movie. Freaking movie.
Anytime, man. Anytime.
Yeah.
I'm always down to film anything. I'm kind of sort of a camera whore. I don't mind doing anything about this. Another quick story, just fun. The way I celebrated my 18th birthday was I went on Jerry Springer and got naked.
Really? What was the shit back in the day? When I was down there in Milwaukee, there was an offer for us to go work as like security on Jerry Springer. Like there was some type of connection.
Go back to what we started talking about earlier. The AWW, the All World Wrestling Show. Don McNeil.
Yeah.
Don used to be an executive producer for Springer.
That's how it was, because I do remember. I don't know if it was Scott Wisniewski or somebody mentioning to us.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. I don't know how I'm going to tell my parents that now.
Oh, see, I was in the audience. I wasn't on stage. I wasn't an actor on stage. I was in the audience and raised my hand during the Q&A segment. And I said, all these girls are showing off all what they've got. Well, what about me? And I specifically bought snap pants, like the NBA pants, to rip off. And I had a thong on underneath. And I ran down to the stage. I shook my white ass, took the thong down, shook my white ass some more, and got my Jerry beads.
I'm assuming this is on YouTube somewhere, right?
I have yet to find it. I used to have a VHS copy of it, and a VCR ate it. And it was one of the sadder days of my life when the VCR ate and broke my tape. I have contacted the Springer people. I have scoured the internet, and I cannot find it. If anybody out there that watches this, if you need the information, this was filmed on September between the 24th and 26th of 2003, and it aired in January. I want to say it was January 24th of 2006. Wait,
oh, wow.
No, 2004. Excuse me, 2004.
Okay, 4.
So it aired in January. I've looked. If I had more time, I'd be able to go back in my phone in my history, because I know the episode, but I cannot find it.
Well, you know what? We're gonna have to do another one of these, and I'm always looking for content, and we're gonna have to do like Raiders of the Lost. Shit. There's got to be a lot of people looking for stuff. There's got to be stuff that people remember, and you can't find it on YouTube. You know what I just found on YouTube? And I posted it on my Facebook. I don't know if you saw it, and there's not a whole lot of wrestling in it, but Ernest P. Worrell, Jim Varney, had a show called Hey Vern, It's Ernest.
Yeah.
And I'm going through this Wikipedia. Why am I looking up Ernest? Because I look up a lot of weird old shows.
Awesome.
He's got. I posted the YouTube link because it's called it's Hey Ernest Sports, and he decides
He's gonna
wrestle challenge Chainsaw Chester in a pro wrestling.
No.
But he needs a name. So he's like going through his name, and he's Ernest the Furnace. It's got a lot of nonsense, but I'm like, I put it up there last night because I was like, after midnight, I'm like, listen, a lot of crazy shit in the world. If you got 20 minutes to just take a break and watch nonsense, it was kind of cool.
Well, it's funny too because I just shared something Ernest myself maybe a day or two ago because they're actually making a documentary about Ernest, and I shared that they were making a documentary, and I actually tagged John Cena, and I said I hope John Cena is playing Ernest.
Oh man! And then another thing that I remember, this is illegal, but I'm not gonna say how I acquired it, but I used to work with International. Obviously, I'm working International now, but for some reason they can put stuff on a hard drive that we can't. So I'd always try to copy stuff. I ended up somehow on one of these mega big terabyte hard drives. There is a few episodes of the Weird Al Yankovic show that apparently.
Yeah, I remember that.
And Randy Savage is on one of them.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. I gotta get to. There's got to be a lot of stuff like that we got to be able to look up and archive and find. We can do the search, and you know what? We're giving away prizes. We're trying to reach 1,000 people, subscribers on YouTube. And the goal of that, and I'll tell you off the air more of the goal, but it's just the more subscribers we can get, it's like selling tickets for the house. The more eyes we can get on the wrestlers, the better off it is. And a lot of people will just not – you don't realize if you have a Gmail, you can subscribe, and it's not going to send you anything. But, you know, maybe we offer – I was offering, hey, once we hit 1,000, I've got this, and I don't know where I put it, but it's a WWF grill set. It's got the apron, the chef's hat.
Very cool.
And I'm like, you know what? I'll give that away. I got some autographs, Ricky Morton, Robert Gibson, stuff sitting around that I'm like, hey, I'd rather use what I have to try to promote the stuff. So maybe we do some giveaways. We do a series of just lost footage stuff that we're all looking to.
That'd be so cool. That'd be really cool. Now you said the Rock and Roll Express. You ever hear the infamous story of Jimmy Valiant and the Rock and Roll Express?
I don't think I have off the top of my head.
With a glass table?
Tell me it, just because I'm drawing a blank right now.
Well, I got confirmation from this story 2 years ago when we had the Rock and Roll Express at WPW. And I had to ask because it's one of them stories where it's just like, if that actually happened, WTF. So the legend is that there was one time where Ricky walked into a locker room and there was a hooker or a rat shitting on a glass table, and Valiant was underneath the glass table, and the R&R walked in on that. Ricky confirmed that story to me 2 years ago.
Oh my God, can we even air that story in this day and age? Wow.
Well, I mean, I the only bad thing I said was was shitting. So
right. Oh my goodness. Wow. We've gone off the rails here. Crazy Train. I love it.
That happens.
I'm trying to even think of any questions I have for you because I just want to hear more stories. But did you ever get a chance to let me go back to the book. You don't have to pick it up or anything, but is a guy we were talking about Adrian Adonis, that's a rare autograph. I don't know anybody that's got a Jerry Blackwell autograph.
I've never met somebody else that's had an Adrian Adonis autograph ever in my life. I mean, if they're out, they've got to be out there. But I know, like, the story that I always got was he was super true to kayfabe, and he was a heel, so he refused to sign a lot of autographs for a lot of people.
So I used to watch the AWA when they come to local towns up here eventually in the late 80s. And one of the more disappointing nights of my life was the main event announced. Let me make sure I got this right. Was a 6-man tag. Greg Gagne, Baron von Raschke, and Wahoo McDaniel were supposed to go. Yeah, Kurt Hennig, Bob Orton, and Adrian Adonis. And the only one to show up out of the heel tag team was Bob Orton.
Oh,
but at the time, I wanted to see, and who else no-showed that card was Kevin Kelly, who went on to be infamously Nails.
yeah.
But as a kid, I remember I wanted to see Adrian Adonis because I wanted to actually see how big he was. And I wanted to see, me and my buddy wanted to see Mr. Magnificent Kevin Kelly because we thought, this was our first real, we thought we could go up to him and he would give us weightlifting tips. Thank God he wasn't there because he would have just tossed us out, you know.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they didn't show up. And the other one that I was disappointed in, it was going to be Larry Zbyszko defending the title against Ken Patera. And this was going to be in Tomahawk, Wisconsin. And the ring announcer announced that, you know, halfway through the show that Ken Patera was not going to be there because he hit a deer outside of Ladysmith, Wisconsin.
Did he actually hit a deer, or was this the Waukesha incident?
No, this was after the Waukesha incident.
Oh, okay.
It remains to be seen. That might be one of our lost archive shows that we go, can anybody prove that in whatever it was, 89?
There was one year where I was on I was on a couple of shows with Ken Patera, and then I also saw him at the CAC that same year. And I was told by many people that he does not like to get asked questions about the Waukesha incident. So if you ever interview Ken Patera, stay away from the Waukesha story.
Well, there's a lot of stuff I try to stay away because if you want, like I said, you can find it. What I always worry about, and I don't want this to sound offensive, a lot of these guys that I want to interview that are of, you know, say a bit older than us, like, dude, I can barely figure out Zoom and Facebook. Can they? You know, can we?
Yeah, no, I understand that completely. Like until this interview, I never used Zoom my entire life. I had no idea I knew what it was because of commercials, because of COVID. But if it wasn't because of COVID, I would have never known what this was.
Well, I would have stuck to Skype, except this gives me a great opportunity, the graphics department at Wrestling Travel, to put this up because now otherwise I hate to pull the curtain back, but otherwise
you're pulling the curtain back, showing the fourth
curtain
wall.
back.
See, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do because I hate having blank walls when I'm cutting promos or anything like that. This is hanging up in my bedroom, so I just grabbed a chair. And in all reality, the camera is sitting on a TV tray, which is on my bed, and I'm sitting on a chair against the wall in my bedroom.
Now, both of us just completely ruining the magic.
Yeah, absolutely.
For everybody else. I don't know if I can go to De Pere tomorrow night, JP. Are you wrestling tomorrow night?
Well, see, this is WPW's first show back since COVID. Our last show was called Caged. It was in March at the Watering Hole in Green Bay, and I totally screwed our world champion out of his title, and so he's probably going to be coming back for revenge tomorrow night against me for screwing him out of the title.
The reason why I don't know if I could go is I think I'd be shooting the breeze with you for like all night, you know.
Oh, that's all right. I'm all right with that. I'm completely down with that.
Now, how do is there limited ticket? How, for the people, sorry, everybody watching this, if you're still with us, I got off on a little tangent, which is very easy to do with you. What are the precautions that we're taking in the state of Wisconsin right now so people around the world can kind of understand?
Well, we're going to do staggered seating. I'm getting to the show. I mean, bell time isn't until 7 o'clock. I'm getting to the show at 1 o'clock. We're going to figure out a way to stagger the seating to where there is going to be some type of social distancing in place. We also bought a bunch of hand sanitizer dispensers and hand sanitizer. So we're going to have that around the venue. we're letting people have masks be optional. We put that on the Facebook page in the event that masks are optional. If you want one, feel free to bring your own. We're not going to supply masks. And again, that part of that is me being a conspiracy nut. But if you want to wear a mask, absolutely go ahead. We're going to stagger the seating. We're going to make sure that we are being safe for our fans.
Okay, good. Because I know a lot of people are itching wherever they are in the country or in the world. Want to be cautious, but can't wait to get back.
But they want to do something. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm expecting that, and I'd said this before wrestling had even come back in Wisconsin, that when it does come back, I know the talent is always going to be given 120%, but the crowd will now hopefully be given that 120% because they've missed.
Absolutely. I 100% agree on that.
And their live entertainment. So what do you have, like a max capacity? I hate to talk personal business on here, but I'm
not sure what we're going to do with that yet. I mean, we're just going to see who shows up. For this coming show, we just did tickets available at the door. Usually we have a website to reserve tickets and everything like that, but we're just doing at the door. So that way we can make sure that we're seeing how many people are coming in versus how many chairs we have. And so that way we can be accurate in our counts.
I better get there early because I'd hate to drive 2 hours and get shut out at the door.
Very true. Very, very true.
Fantastic. So what I want to do is I want to close up. I want to finish this interview, but I want to ask you back for a part 2 at some point.
Absolutely.
I feel like there's a whole bunch of stuff that you and I could talk about that may or may. Well, we'll see. We'll put this out. Maybe you and I are the only ones interested in this talk. But I know a certain Greg Gagne would probably love to see an interview like this and probably just chomping at the bit to come on this show. But I want to end with this. I want you to where can we follow the Mouth of the Midwest? We didn't even scratch the surface on a lot of your stuff. We got a lot, so that's why we got to come back and do it. But I'm fan.
I'm absolutely okay with coming back. But I mean, I have all the socials. I think I have to have all the socials because of pro wrestling. I'm not a Twitter guy. I'm not an Instagram guy, but I have them. It's all MOTMJP, Mouth of the Midwest JP. Facebook is the same thing. You can search for Mouth of the Midwest JP and I'll pop up. The reason why Facebook is under my real name is because a while back I had people report I had a crazy ex-girlfriend that kept reporting the page because it was a false name. So finally I had to send a copy of my driver's license through Facebook in order to get them to unlock my page because they wanted my real name. So they locked my Facebook because she reported my page so much.
Tell me Zuckerberg's got a copy of your driver's license.
Yeah, but that's all right. But yeah, you can search Mouth of the Midwest JP. I'll pop up on Facebook, but it is under my shoe name.
And just in case you're not wearing it the next time we talk to you, I'm loving the shirt. I know there's a lot of fans that they love the shirt.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit before the show. I created the design. It's the old LJN poster that you used to get with all the LJN action figures. I wanted to do, because back when I created this, nobody ripped off LJN. So I thought I was going to be cool and rip off LJN. And then I got the demo shirt printed, which I'm wearing. And then the Young Bucks announced their partnership with LJN. And they came out with the action figures. So I kind of scrapped the idea, and I only have this demo shirt. Because I didn't want to rip off of the Young Bucks, even though I had the idea first.
Yeah, Young Bucks. Did you make it down to AEW All Out in Chicago by chance?
I did not.
Oh, man.
They screwed me there too.
Tell me the story.
I booked a show in Belgium, Wisconsin, actually, for WPW. And I had booked Tito Santana for the show. It was going to be the first time we were in the area. And I booked Tito. And the very next day, AEW announced their pay-per-view in Chicago for my same date. And Tito wasn't able to reschedule. I already had the plane ticket booked. And so I moved my bell time early and convinced the bar to buy the pay-per-view. But yeah, I got screwed out of that one too because I announced my date first and then they announced theirs. I know it's just coincidence, but it's a funny coincidence because I announced all my stuff. I book the airfare, and then they book a show in Chicago for a pay-per-view.
We'll talk about this on our next show, Conspiracy Theories with Mouth of the Midwest JP.
Oh, I got a bunch of those too. That could be a full podcast.
I'm excited about that one. We'll do a bunch of stuff, man, if you're available.
Absolutely.
The reason why I mentioned it is we have a wrestling travel table set up. And by the way, I got to get my plug in. Wrestling travel, what do we do? People are seeing the logo. A lot of people, we see the logo. What do you do? We bring fans from all over the world to different wrestling events. We bring you to WrestleMania. We bring you to the last one that we did before everything got canceled was Wrestle Kingdom in Tokyo. As a fan, I can go to these big events. Wrestling Travel takes care of my tickets, my airfare, and my hotel. But we don't charge you. JP, if you went to Wrestle Kingdom in Tokyo last year, it would have cost you $2,500. Can you believe
Sounds
that?
about accurate.
That's your round trip airfare to Japan, your ticket, your hotel. And guess what? We didn't do a credit check on you, and we charged you monthly payments. We didn't take $2,500 out. So if you're ready to commit to WrestleMania 37, which we're hoping we still have, the earlier you book this, you put a down payment down, and now you're paying monthly. We're not taking everything out of your pocket at once, which I think is the coolest thing that we do.
Absolutely.
So we're promoting our business at the AEW All Out. Across from our table is the Doll Man, he calls himself. He's got all these LJNs that I'm like,
Okay.
Hey, man, I had a Hulk Hogan beat up one, all the paint's off. But I'm like, I had no idea how much those were worth now. He had some in the package, and the Warlord in the package, and he's got like the blue man. I'm like, dude, this is a cool looking figure. And he's like,
Yeah.
that's like $350.
Mm-hmm. If I knew then what I knew now, I'd be a millionaire based off of LJNs.
Wow. So the cool thing about this guy is he sees me. I'm looking at him all the time. He's got the package tag team of Hulk Hogan and Hillbilly Jim. In fact, on my phone, I was taking pictures of his merch because I'm like, dude, I don't even remember when those came out as tag teams. So he's like, oh, you're interested? And I go, dude, tell you what, I would love to have, but the ones that I have picked up are all beat up. He proceeds to bring a box on Sunday from his home and says, he brought a bunch of my ones. He goes, I can't sell them. They're all beat to hell. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, well, there's a few I don't have. And this box of, I think it was 28 figures. And I go, well, I can pick a couple out. And he goes, well, I was hoping to sell you the whole box. And I'm like, oh, shit. How much? And he goes, $40. So for $40, I got they're LJNs.
That's amazing.
Yeah, the paints wore off, but I finally got my, what I had only had before was Hulk Hogan Junkyard Dog. But now I got my Big John Stud, my Hillbilly Jim.
Nice.
Mr. Wonderful Paul Arnold. Greg, the Hammer Valentine.
I had
Not
all
smiling.
of them. I had the entire collection except Warlord, the British Bulldogs, and Miss Elizabeth. Those were the only ones that were missing out of the entire collection.
Now, do you still have your collection, or did you? Damn it.
No, those are long gone. But that's why I said, if I knew then what I knew now, I'd be a millionaire off of LJNs.
Wow. Well, there are some. I love watching when stuff kind of pops up on like the Facebook Marketplace and stuff. It's always down south by you guys, where nothing up here in the Northwoods. But I always I'm a huge collector of old Nintendo video games too. You remember playing pro wrestling on Nintendo?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My favorite Nintendo was the WCW game, though. That was my favorite for the regular Nintendo.
Got it in the box.
Nice. One of my favorite dudes ever to watch work has always been Mike Rotunda, and he was a playable character in that WCW game. So that game was always one of my favorites.
Yeah. Did you see? I'll have to send it to you. Somewhere on Facebook a couple years ago, somebody had there's an art. You probably look it up. But there was a different version of that game with all kinds of different playable characters then.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. Somebody found it like maybe it was like these are the players that were placeholding. We were putting them, before they did the game.
Yeah.
And I wish I would have studied up so I know, but there's a lot of different playable characters.
Very neat.
One version. So, all right. Well, hey, we're gonna wrap it up here because you got to get ready for a show, sir.
Yeah, I got to get going down to Beaver Dam tonight, and then tomorrow I'll hopefully be seeing you.
Yeah, you got to get a Halliburton. So fantastic.
Absolutely.
I will let you know if I'm seeing you at WPW, but
Awesome.
the Midwest JP, I can promise you this: we're having you back because we've
Fantastic.
only touched the surface. So take care of yourself.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You.